I'm Melisa Idris.
And I'm Sharaad Kuttan.
This is Consider This. Tomorrow, Tuesday, 10th of December, is International Human Rights Day. And Eleanor Roosevelt once said, "Where do human rights begin? In places so small, so close to home, that they cannot be seen in any map of the world." So joining us on the show tonight, we have Jerald Joseph, one of the commissioners of the National Human Rights Commission of Malaysia, better known as SUHAKAM, to tell us a little bit more about human rights that should be close to home. Welcome, Jerald, to the show. Now, can we talk a little bit about where Malaysia stands when it comes to the human rights benchmark? I mean, has there been successes so far this year that you've seen?
It's a big question. The list is long, and the demand of human rights, as you mentioned rightfully, it's in the places where we don't see. And that could be the villages where water is lacking, could be the kampungs where the land rights of indigenous are still not existing. It could be in very informal settlements where people without documents struggle to live their life for fear of being arrested, not because it could also be children who just did not get the documents and they suffer multiple layers of difficulty from a rights point, education, health. It could also be behind bars, which public doesn't see, conditions of prison, lock-up detention, investigation methods, cabbies, the list. So it's in all places, right up to you and I, having the confidence that society is safe, that we can walk out of this building and know that we won't be arrested arbitrarily because we have rights, or we will not be pickpocketed because the security is taken care of. So the range is so wide.
Right.
And even if you don't do anything and if you still feel discriminatory practices exist in Malaysia, I feel like, oh, if I apply for that job, surely I won't get it because I'm of a certain ethnic group or a religion. I mean, that already speaks to human rights. So the list is long, and your question is how many of this tick box, I would say we're moving forward.
Well, okay, so let me refine that question a little bit better. Are we moving in the right direction?
Yeah.
Has there been progress in achieving this?
Yeah. So just those examples I gave you, there is, because there is some earnestness in trying to reform the Akta Orang Asli, for example, because there's a big problem of the land rights of indigenous people. Sure. There is a discussion to improve how the Department of Orang Asli works with indigenous people, because they've heard all the complaints, So I think there's a responsiveness that are indicative that things are moving. There is improvement in the lockups. For the first time, there's good news. Congrats to the Malaysian government. SUHAKAM has been pushing to have medical doctors at lockups before people go in, before we get detained, which is part of the suspicion of deaths in custody or torture. So there'll be 5 centralized lockup which will have a medical team to screen them. So this is a progress.
Okay.
Yeah, and then also, I don't know whether Malaysians know, but there are 6 prisons in Malaysia still have a very old toilet system called the bucket system, which our great-grandparents used to do.
The bucket system?
Bucket system. Where
Still exists in Malaysian prisons?
Yeah. 6 prisons have that. One is because very old, and there's no modern toilet.
There's no modern plumbing in 6 prisons in Malaysia. That is extraordinary.
Okay, I mean, moving from toilets to Parliament, let's...
It's a big jump, is it? Oh, not
well,
so big.
Maybe
a small step.
Depending on the day of Parliament, I think. Another extraordinary feat was, for the first time, the SUHAKAM report was debated in Parliament, something that SUHAKAM has wanted for the longest time, and it's only this year that this was achieved. Now, you were there in Parliament. Jerald, tell us a bit about the quality of the discussion around the SUHAKAM report.
Because we were shocked. I mean, we waited. Every year we keep asking, nothing happened. It's tabled. It's been tabled, meaning it's put on the table the previous years. First time the Minister, VKLU, and the government put it on debate. So we're not sure what to expect. But amazing, I thought that the 12 MPs that took the floor from both sides, 6 and 6, were good. It was like a book they could pick any issue of concern. And MPs started debating substance of the matter. So we had a range from defense of the need for the independence of SUHAKAM, increased budget, if not they can't work, because our commissioners, this was mentioned yesterday, you know, there's been no review of the terms for commissioners the last 20 years. So we are like 3 times lower than other commission. The cars are 15 years old, so may break down any time when I was coming here. But the point being that they should be adequately funded. 2 serious issues in their constituencies, so citizenship, statelessness, migrant workers, children, sexually abused children, the system of court. So they went into deep substance, asking government answers using our report, you know.
Okay.
There was also 1 or 2 MPs who disagreed with some of the things we said, mainly on LGBT, on how we phrased it, which we will take it on board. But these are the differentiation between the position of an independent commission, which reviews and views matters from a human rights lens and will say it as it is, and the government may have a different view from us. So
help us put this into context. The SUHAKAM report is essentially a report on the state of human rights in Malaysia, right? And SUHAKAM gives recommendations to the government how to improve the state of human rights. Has any of the recommendations been taken up by not just this government, but the previous government?
So, like the example I gave you of the centralized custodial medical units, that's an example.
Oh, so it has been, some of them has been. What about the Barisan National Government? Have they taken up any of the recommendations?
They do. So
before?
sometimes in the localized areas, if there is a complaint and we inform them, some action is taken at the localized line. A police officer did some disciplinary action or something wrong or torture, it gets to the disciplinary board. But at the policy level, much less, and that's where sometimes I feel that the recommendation has been noted with reverence, but not escalated to action, you know.
It's like noted with thanks.
Okay, the question is why, right? Is it because broadly there isn't a sufficient understanding of rights as a kind of discourse, right? Rights as a kind of way of thinking about governance. Because governance always seems to be in the provision of certain services, and they might actually in some ways be congruent with the rights perspective, but rights suggest something more than just that your MP happened to, or the government happened to give allocation for this and that, right? So is that an understanding? Is there a rights perspective, broadly speaking, within the Assembly?
I was pleasantly surprised that they picked up rights understanding, they critique from a rights point of view, they articulated. And the better part yesterday was they used a SUHAKAM report, and there's also another report given to each MP called Maklum Balas. The official reply from every ministry of our report was also put in that. So they actually read through and they had some criticism of the answers of the government.
Oh,
why is this
wow.
so, which is, I think, going to push the government to give better answers, government agencies. You know, every year we get that, but it's sort of sometimes quite standard answers, and we expect it to move more. But the background of it is, human rights is a tough sell in Malaysia, especially to government, because rights means you can demand some things that government feels like it's in their purview. Who are you to demand? But that's what human rights is, you know. It's in the places where it resides. Actually, it resides in our hearts, you know, from the day we were born. So I think many governments, the previous government, shied away from rights. They gave some cursory attention, but not substantive attention. This government has put it on paper in their manifesto, like it's almost a rights, you know, freedom, democracy. But now the challenge is, how do you realize these things, like the bills, you know, the coming up of many bills. The National Inquiry Report on Indigenous People that was done in 2013. It's a good report with 18 recommendations. The previous government accepted 17 and set up a cabinet committee, but then no real follow through.
Right.
But now the new government, we are trying to find where is that located, and we still haven't found the location of where.
Of whose purview this is?
Yeah, who,
Right.
right. So there's some gap. So I think these are the real follow through, because if you want to make human rights work, then it's in the nuts and bolts.
It's in the implementation of
Yeah,
that. We'll come back and continue this discussion, especially on SUHAKAM's role in human rights as a tough sell in Malaysia. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.